Hello, my name is Karishma Punwani and I'm the Director of Academic Product Management at Maplesoft. And today I'm going to talk to you about how we can increase engagement in maths using interactive technologies. Now, as you likely know, many students struggle to connect with abstract mathematical concepts. And when that happens, learning becomes harder, motivation drops, and anxiety can start to creep in. Now, this is where MapleLearn comes in. As an interactive online math environment, MapleLearn makes mathematics more tangible, more visual, and more relevant. It helps students explore ideas dynamically and stay motivated through hands-on engagement, and it allows them to reinforce their learning with meaningful practice. Now to start, I'm going to show you MapleLearn so you can get a feel for the environment and what it can do. And once we've looked at the core features, I'll go ahead and walk you through some examples from the A-Level and GCSE content collections, which align with the AQA and Pearson specifications. These ready-made, customizable activities will make it really easy for you to deliver engaging, interactive math experiences tailored to your specific class. Now, I want this session to be interactive, so if you have any questions at any point, feel free to pause me and ask right away. All right, let's get started. Now I'm just going to switch off my camera so you don't have to look at the side of my face while I'm sharing my screen. So what you see on your screen over here is MapleLearn. Now the first question is, what exactly is MapleLearn? Now MapleLearn is a digital math notebook for solving problems, exploring concepts, and creating rich online maths content. Now there are two components to MapleLearn. One is the content gallery, and the other is the document editor. So let me show you the content gallery, and you can get to the content gallery by clicking this little home icon. So MapleLearn, when you come to the home page of MapleLearn, learn.maplesoft.com, you'll see there's tons of different content in all areas of mathematics that you can pick from. And in fact, there is content, and we'll go into this in more detail a little later, for A-level mathematics and GCSE mathematics. But for now, let me just show you. If you click on any of these collections, you'll see all the different types of content that we have in that collection. And use any of this as a starting point for creating your own materials. So for instance, if I clicked on this one, this is a particular activity. You can use it, you can modify it, you can add other text. That's how flexible MapleLearn is. So use any of the content here as a starting point for creating your own material. Now, the other thing is the document editor. And what you see on your screen over here is the document editor. Now, let me walk you through some kind of components of the document editor. This area over here, this is what we call the canvas. And this is where you're going to write your text and do your math. To the top, we have palettes. So we have palettes to insert different functions, symbols. If you're doing some type of need a geometrical object or shape, matrices, tables, piecewise functions, so on and so forth. And these are all clickable, draggable, very, very easy to use. You'll see over here, this is the live plot area. It's for instantly plotting 2D visualizations. And then you'll see the context panel, and I'll show you that momentarily. So this is the document environment. And actually, I got ahead of myself. So these are the things that I wanted to talk about. Canvas, you'll see over here, math is organized into groups. And this is denoted by this bar over here with these numbers. And the numbers are there for a reason. They help you determine the order of execution. And I'll explain that shortly. I already talked about the toolbar, the palettes, the plot window, the context panel. You'll see momentarily. Live sessions, you can share your documents with your students very easily. So let me walk you through some examples. Now, MapleLearn over here, so I've opened up this group, I have sections, and supports, standard operations, including Boolean expressions. So I can do something like 1 + 1, it'll tell me it's 2. If I ask it, is that greater than 3? It'll tell me automatically that that's false. Now in MapleLearn, if you want to define variables, that requires you to use the : syntax. And this is to disambiguate assignment versus equality. So how do you do that over here? Let's say I want to define a variable A. I just do A : and let's say I want to give it the value of 3. I can do that. You'll notice a slider appears automatically. If I don't want a slider, I can go over here and uncheck show slider. And you can easily create more complicated expressions. So here I can do something like 4 times a. Notice that it already knows the value of a is 3. And of course, if I had moved the slider, the value would update. So 4 times a plus 3. And if I want to put this all over, let's say something like 7, I'm just going to select everything. So I'm using Shift and my arrow keys, divided by 7. And you'll see that I get the answer. I get an exact answer as well as an approximation. And like any good math calculator, or maths calculator, I should say, MapleLearn defaults to computing angles in radians, but of course you can switch that if necessary. So over here I can say, what is sine of 360? And I'll have it, but if I want to switch this to degrees, I can do so at the top over here. So let me show you this plotting window that I mentioned earlier. So let's go ahead and plot something. So let's say I want the line y equals a times x. Notice as soon as I get that, I get a plot. I can, of course, make this bigger over here, hide the context panel. I have options for different settings, and I can do things. So here I have my plot. Again, as I change my slider, my plot will update. Something else that I want to show you is at this point, if I click on this little green icon, I have the ability to change the colors. So that's how you can create a plot. Notice over here, and we'll get to this shortly, but as I do math in MapleLearn, something called the context panel appears. And the context panel is context aware. So over here, it'll give me operations that I might want to apply on this particular equation. And so I can ask it to differentiate this. I can ask it to assign a value to a variable, so on and so forth. If I want an inline plot, and I'll show you that in a moment, I can click on this plot. The idea here, and of course you can search for operations. Now the idea here is really to ensure that students don't have to spend time knowing commands in order to be productive. And this is a feature that is very popular in our desktop software, Maple. And we were very intentional in putting this in MapleLearn to make the learning curve as easy as possible for students, for new users. So now I showed you how to do some basic things in MapleLearn. One of the most important things that you're going to want to do in MapleLearn is add text. The idea here is you want to create documents that are not only, explain the math, that are interactive, but that also give you an opportunity to write what's going on, create notes for your students so that they can have something to refer back to. So MapleLearn is just not a graphing calculator. It allows you to create, as I said before, this digital math notebook. At any point, whatever you're doing, you can click this icon, share, and that will give you a link to the specific document that you can go ahead and share with your students. So now let's talk about adding that text. How do we do that? So it's very, very simple. To add text, all you have to do is click the space bar. If I click the space bar, you'll see that my cell over here, a little icon appears representing that this is in text mode, and I can type in secant and tangent lines. Something to note about text is that any math that you have, again, here, if I want to do, let's say this line, let's say I want to do 1 plus 1. Notice that it's not evaluated. So you can have math notation in a text cell, but that expression, equation, whatever you put in will not be evaluated. It's just something to keep in mind. At any point, if I want to get out of text, I can just click on this icon and unselect text mode. So here we're talking about secant and tangent lines. So again, I want to go ahead and define a function, and I'm going to do that using that assignment operator. So let's say I have a function, f of x colon equals x cubed plus 3x minus 5. So here it is, and notice that as soon as I do that, I get my plot. At any point, I can go in, I can pan. If I want to zoom horizontally, I have the ability to do that. So here I have, and of course, this is a function, so I can evaluate this function at a point. So let's say, what is f of 1? And it will give me the value over here. Or I might want to create, let's say now I want to have a point. So I'm going to, again, let's define a variable, and let's say I want to use a. Now notice a is defined as 2 from the previous thing. And so that's something to keep in mind. Any variable that's defined in a previous group, and that's where the group numbers come into play, so is known by that group in all subsequent groups. So A is 2, but now if I want to reuse the variable A, I can say, okay, A colon equals -1, and now as A is equal to -1, I have a slider, and let's go ahead and create a point at this value. So I can go and use this geometry palette, and if I click on this, it enters a template which gives me the syntax in order to define my point. So I can say A, f of A. So here A is -1, and I can do that and I have my point. Now, the point over here, it's a movable point. So I can click this. Notice as I update this, the slider is also changing. So let's get this back to, let's say, -1 if I want to update it. So here I have my point. Now, in order to construct the tangent of the point, we can use our mathematical knowledge. And so there's many ways in math to take a derivative. So you can do that using, let me pull that up, d by dx notation. You can use the context panel. So if I click on this, I can actually go ahead and get the derivative of this. I can use prime notation. I can actually go back and use limits if I wanted to. There's so much flexibility, and MapleLearn tries to support all of that. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and use prime notation. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to say f prime of A. And here I have the value. And now I can go ahead and define my tangent line. So y minus f of A equals f prime of A, which is my slope, times x minus A. And here is my tangent line. And again, as I update the point, this moves. And let's make this a little bit so you can get a better sense of what's going on. Okay. So you can also plot the secant line in a similar way. I'm going to scroll down so you can see a little bit. This time, let's go ahead and use h. So I'm going to have a value h comma equals, and let's give it the value, I don't know, 3. Now, something else I want to note here before we go on is that when you're going to plot multiple things into this live plot area, I would recommend that you go ahead and lock the view. You'll notice that I've already done this in this worksheet. And I suggest that because the plot window will try to adjust everything so you can fit all of your graphs. And sometimes that's not the view that you want. So you can go ahead and just lock this. And now as I'm going to define my secant line, I'll be able to see it clearly in this region. So here it is, and let's go ahead and use point command. So I can, now that I know it, I can type it in. You can see that MapleLearn is aware that of this command, it's bolded. And now I can say A plus H, comma, f of A plus H, as so, here. And now all I'm going to do is I've created my point over here at 3. I'm not seeing it. Let me zoom in a little bit. There we go. Here's my particular point. And now I want to create the secant line. So I'm going to do y minus f of A again equals f of A plus H minus f of A. And notice how everything is updating. MapleLearn is taking care of the computation like any good calculator times x minus A, but hopefully you can see how this is so much more than a calculator. So here I have my secant line, and I can go and look at that. If I want, I can change this color. Let's make it a pretty purple, and then it updates over here. Now, something else to note, and I mentioned before, is sometimes I might want to have an inline plot. So how do I do that? So, oops, I'm going to delete this cell. Click enter over here, and all I have to do is select the plots that I want in my inline plot. So let's say I want my function, I want the plot, I want the tangent, And if I click on these three things, and maybe I want, let's put all of these things here, plot, and it will go ahead and give me an inline plot. I have all the same tools. I can make this bigger, smaller, zoom in, pan, kind of make this visualization that I want. And now that I have this inline plot, if I want, again, I can lock that view, close the context panel, and here I have something. So now when I share this with my students, the plot is always there. Because something to note about the plot window is the plot window will plot everything that is in the group. So right now, oops, let me show you. I was in group 2. So if I click on group 2, you'll see the visualization. Now if I click back on group 1, you'll see the visualization for group 1. So if I want to make sure that my visualization is always there for my students, I would just create an inline plot. So now let's move on to the context panel, which is probably one of my most favorite features in MapleLearn. And one of the things that's unique about the context panel is that it allows students to perform operations on their math without having to know any commands. So let's take a look. So given any expression, the context panel will provide you with different operations that you can perform on it. So for example, let's say I have this equation, 17x squared plus 5x plus 19 equals 0. You'll notice here as I typed this in, I was getting results in the context panel. And I can go ahead and expand this so I can see it. And so here I'll have the ability to do things such as solve for x. And here I'll get my solution. As another option, notice here as soon as I did this, I also have the ability to get steps for solving that particular problem. Let's say I want to have an integral. I'm going to do the integral. I'm going to get that out of the palette of 1 over x. Notice again, now I have different operations in the context panel, and I can go ahead and evaluate this integral. And so the context panel here works on all different types of maths. So if I had different types of expressions, or if I have a matrix, if I'm doing something with tables, if I have piecewise functions, the operations change. Now, one thing I wanted you to notice about the results that we see over here, notice how we're getting the complex solution to the quadratic equation and the real valued result for the integral. And this is because MapleLearn tries to use commonly expected domains per operation. Now, if you want to explicitly work in the real or complex domains, you can easily change this using, changing the knowledge context default. So if I go up here, you'll see that there's something called knowledge context, and I can go ahead. Currently it's set to the default, but I am able to change this to real or complex. Just something for you to note. Now moving on to check my work. So let's expand this. Now the check my work operation will go through the equations in a group, line by line, to analyze the solution to the problem and point out any inconsistencies. So here you can see if I was a student and I was trying to solve this particular derivative, I could work through it line by line over here. And now I can click this and click on check my work, and it'll analyze my solution and let me know where I might have made a mistake, as you can see over here. And so this then gives me the opportunity to go and fix any of my mistakes over here. Let me give you another example of check my work. So in this case, I have this equation, and I've gone ahead and solved it line by line, and I can click on check my work. And I got the correct solution. Now, something else that you can do is you can actually take a picture, handwritten a picture of your work, solved line by line. You can take a picture with the Maple Calculator app. It's a free mobile app. And you can actually bring in anything that you've done on a piece of paper directly into Maple Learn. And something else to note is that this feature is available in the Maple calculator itself. So you can, again, a student can do something in their notebook, paper and pencil, use the Maple calculator app to take a picture of it, and they would get the results for check my work. Or they could go ahead, take a picture of that expression, and then bring it straight into Maple Learn and do the same thing. So that's a very powerful feature, and the Check My Work feature is available for all different types of problem sets. So feel free to look at it, and in fact, if you go to the Maple Gallery, as a reminder, just to click on the home page, you can find some documentation on the Check My Work feature and lots of different examples on how you can use it. So at this point, speaking of the Maple Gallery, I wanted to talk to you about lots of the different examples that we have in the gallery specifically for A-Levels and GCSE. So I've gone ahead and chosen a few that I wanted to show you. So for some explanations and visualizations, we'll have a document over here on the horizontal line test. Or let me click on order of operations first. So this is an activity and it allows students to kind of systematically work through how they would solve this problem. And it asks them, in this case, what operation should you apply first? So you would maybe click on exponentiation, then you would look at it, and then you would say, okay, well, maybe I would do subtraction next. I made a mistake. Notice that as soon as I made a mistake in this particular activity, there's a link so that a student can go and maybe review concepts that they weren't clear about. And so they can click on this and then again have more details on order of operations. Another example here is, this is a visualization, but about the horizontal line test. So there's some explanation over here. It talks about first, okay, let's recall the vertical line test. You have the slider, you can move this. And then we look at the horizontal line test over here. And again, as we click on the group, you'll see that the plot in the 2D plotter updates, and I can go and look at this and see it. And there's lots of different examples that students can play with. One thing that I really like about this is, again, you can take this particular piece of content, modify it to suit your needs, and then you can go ahead and share it with your students. And once your students have access to it, now this becomes a document that they can play with, that they can use to explore this concept. So it becomes part of their notebook. So here's another example. Some other content over here, this is about the composition of functions. And again, there's a visualization. They can look at it, they can play with it. I really like this as well, you know, because it walks you through the transformations and how the transformations actually, there's a sequence to it. And so there's a certain way to apply it. And if you apply it in a different order, you get a different result. So this is another one that I like. Again, there's more examples, questions that, you know, get students to think. I've picked another one on inverse functions. So again, there is an introduction, something to get students to recall. There's links to different documents, which is really nice. In this case, there's an investigation. They can look at this in more detail and they can see. So all of the documents, as much as possible, we've tried to make them very interactive. They have lots of visualizations to really help a student understand the concept. And so there's more examples that they can look at over here. Some other ones that I wanted to show you over here, kind of in the realm of practice and quizzes. So you have some curve sketching activities over here. So again, a student is prompted, you know, looking at this particular function. What is the y-intercept? They can enter it. They can check their step. They can, if they were stuck, they can show the step over here. It has a little explanation. It then asks them, what are the roots? So they can, again, use Maple Learn. There's an area for rough work that they can use to work through this problem. They can also, as I mentioned before, do it on paper and pencil. take a picture of it, bring it into Maple Learn for further exploration. They can put their answers. If they're stuck, they can say show the step, and it gives them details. They can also use the context panel. So in this case, I might copy this. I can put this into my Maple Learn document, expand the context panel over here, and maybe I know that I have to complete the square. And so there I have the result, and I can enter in the answer. So I can say what the answer is, and I can check my step. I can try another one. Oh, I went too soon. I should have showed you, you can reveal the plot. So as you can work through this, you can also go ahead and reveal the plot. So this is another example. Now, some of these documents you see with buttons, we call them scripted documents. And this is because Maple Learn is built on top of the Maple Math Engine. And as a result, via Maple, you can actually create this programmatic content with randomization. So if at any point you see some content and maybe you would like to modify it or change it, feel free to contact us. We're more than happy to either provide you with the script or, depending on the change, make the change ourselves. So that's something else you can consider. There's another curve sketching one, exploring the forms of quadratic equations. So this is another document that you can look at. Again, lots of content for you to use as is, or as a starting point for creating your content. As I mentioned when we started this particular webinar, all of the content for GCSE content, A-level content is in these curriculum packs. I encourage you to take a look, see what is in there. We've done our best to map it to the curriculum. And so feel free to play with this content, modify it, make it your own. So that concludes what I wanted to show in this webinar. If you have any questions about Maple Learn, about the content, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can contact us directly at info@maplesoft.com, and we'd be more than happy to provide you a more in-depth demonstration or answer any of your questions. As you're getting familiar with Maple Learn, another thing that I want to encourage you to do, if we open this new document, the first time somebody opens up a document, they are presented with this walkthrough tutorial. It takes 5 to 10 minutes, and this really gives you a solid foundation on how to use Maple Learn. And so I would encourage you to do this. Take a look, play with it. It's very, very intuitive. We've launched Maple Learn now about 6-7 years ago. We have lots of students using it, and they really appreciate that this is an all-in-one platform. So it gives you the ability to graph, it gives you documentation, notes, check my work, try and other features, all built into this online experience. So thank you very much. And once again, please don't hesitate to ask any questions.